What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Honeystead. Today is going to be a big day here on our homestead. We've got quite a few people that is coming out to join us. We are going to be butchering and processing some of our chickens that we have been raising for the last 8-9 weeks roughly. We got these chickens from Murray McMurray Hatchery and they are absolutely phenomenal. They've been raised on pasture. We've been moving them twice a day. Well, today's the big day, and full disclosure, if you are not comfortable watching this, I highly recommend just go ahead and skip on over. This is definitely an educational video and we're going to show you a few tricks that we've learned along the way. So come on, let's go check out the setup. So when it comes to processing your own chickens, there's a few different things that you guys can actually do. You don't necessarily need to go ahead and make the purchase and get all of the equipment. I came across this really awesome deal from a homesteader not far from us that actually has an entire setup, and we were able to rent it from him for 75 bucks, and I get it for the entire weekend. That is astronomically cheaper than me purchasing a whole nother setup. Maybe one day in the future, but for right now, rental is just fine. Now, the setup that we're renting is the Featherman brand, and it comes with the cones and the catching system down below. It also came with a scalding tank that we will use to dip the chickens down below and help release some of the feathers. It takes about 2 hours for the scalding tank to get up to temperature. Went ahead and removed the lid because it's a little hotter, but that's a quick fix. We just add some cool water to it and we're gonna monitor it. The reason why you don't want it to be too hot, my family's all showing up, but the reason why you don't want your scalding tank to be too hot is because you don't want to actually cook the birds in the process, dumping them in the scalding tank. Now, the optimum temperature for the scalding tank is about 149 degrees Fahrenheit, but the gentleman that I rented it from said that he has had really good luck with 151 degrees. Then we also have the chicken plucker, which will put the chickens in here after they have gone through the scalding tanks, and that'll help pluck the chicken's feathers out. Now, here's a little trick that I've learned, and I'm going to share it with you guys too when it comes to processing your own. It's not necessarily for the processing part, it's for the actual cleanup part. And this was something that is pretty valuable. You take a little bit of oil spray and spray it on the outside of the cones as well as down in the trough. It'll help make the cleanup a heck of a lot faster and easier, because any of the blood that'll drip from them will be a lot easier to clean off. So make a mental note of that. This is definitely not one of the easiest days. And I've openly shared with you guys when it comes to what we're doing and when it comes to actually processing animals. We honor the animals and we'll use them to their fullest, but this is for our family. This is for food. You know, this is exactly like the same chicken that you would get at the grocery store, except we have painstakingly raised them. They've been loved, they've been cared for, they've been fed, they've been nurtured, and this is their purpose. You know, I know it's not easy, especially as a mama. You know, I know, like, showing and being open about this lifestyle with your kids, it's not easy. If it were easy, we would have a problem. You know what I mean? Like, this would be a problem if this was an easy thing for us to just do. But this is life, and this is what we do and how we choose to feed our family. I'm sharing because I know that there are a lot of moms out there that have a difficult time making this decision and doing this and being a part of this. And men too. I'm not saying just moms. I want you to think about it in a different way. For me, making this decision and raising our animals and processing our own animals is just another way for me to know that my family is getting the very best that they possibly can from what we're doing. I'm not going to necessarily share the dispatching part. There are videos out there, and I can put them down below in the description if you guys are interested in watching that process. But this is part of homesteading. This is part of our life. get some good clips of the entire process. But we had some music playing and we were having a good time and having some conversations, so I'm just gonna walk you through the entire process. When it comes to processing your chickens, there are definitely a few things that I've learned along the way. One of the biggest ones is not to feed your chickens up to 24 hours prior to the big day, and that is because you actually want all of their insides cleaned out and as empty as possible, because then you're not having to deal with possible contamination when you're butchering and processing them. 2, get everything set up the night before. That, I think, has been the biggest, most important thing. And do a walkthrough, especially if it's your first time. Go through the motion. Actually think about the entire process from going down, gathering the chickens, bringing them up, getting them calm, putting the chickens into the hugging cone, then dispatching them, then off to the scalding tank, then off to the chicken plucker. And then off to the tables where you're gonna have the many hands that are gonna come together and pick any of the extra little pin feathers out, and also having the extra hands make the entire process a lot easier, especially if you have different stations set up. Then we take the chickens and we actually remove their feet. Now I save all of the chicken feet, and that is what I use to make all of our chicken stock, which I will definitely take you guys on that process when we are there. I didn't have it in me to do it last night. I think after 121 chickens, I was like, okay, I'm done. Tapping out now. After we remove the feet, then we do remove the head. That goes into a separate bucket, and that's set aside for composting for later. We then make a small incision up by the neck, and we actually separate out the croup, that stomach, as well as the trachea. I'll flip the chicken around, and then I go into the back side, and that's when I make the other incision, and then go inside and actually remove all of the innards. Once I break up the connective tissue and the adhesions that are inside, I'm able to then pull the stomach and the trachea out through on the back side, and then we cut around the rectum. I set all their innards aside, and then I remove the lungs, unless I can take the whole thing out in one lump sum, but sometimes I have to go back through and remove the lungs. Now I'll take the hearts and I'll set them in a separate bowl, and that will end up going to the dogs because they deserve a treat too. They work really hard here on this farm, and what better way to be able to eliminate waste and then also, of course, give the dogs a good special treat. The livers we also save, and we'll bag them up later at the end. And then we take the chickens and we put them in a cooler full of ice because we want to lower the temperature of the chicken meat before we bag it and put it in the freezer. That's a big thing. You want their temperature to be as cold as possible, because if you do put it in the freezer, it could affect any other meat that you have stored in your freezer at the time. After the chickens have sat in icy cold water for a good period of time, you're gonna then take the chickens, dry them off, and put them in the actual bags. Bags that we used for the meat required us to actually take them and actually dump them back in some hot water so that it actually adhered to the chicken. And after that's done, I take the chicken, I weigh it, put the sticker on it, write their weight down, as well as the date that we processed on. That's a big thing, especially if you do this every single year. You want to make sure to use the oldest chicken prior to the fresh batch of chicken that you just harvest. So when it comes to raising your meat chickens, depending on how you're gonna raise them, we raise ours on pasture, and I move them twice a day. So when they were a few weeks old, I gathered them from the brooder and we put them in our chicken tractor. When they were little, I only had to move them about once a day, but as they got older and realizing that they are eating the abundance of clover and grass and everything that's growing out there in the pastures, that's when we decided to go ahead and start moving them early in the morning as well as later in the afternoon. And then we supplemented grain as well. We estimated about 10 pounds of chicken feed per chicken from start to finish, but that's also raising on pasture. I could have absolutely given them more grain, but I really wanted them to be able to eat the actual grass and what we have growing down there, because essentially that's free food for them and that's good for them. When you're processing chicken on your homestead, you can see the difference between a homegrown chicken versus one that you get in the store. The fat is nice and clean and white, and it's not yellow. This right here is what pushes me and gives me the strength to be able to do some of the things that I'm doing, because I know that I'm feeding my family the very best that I possibly can. The overall process took about 5 to 6 hours, and our total count was 121 chickens. All of the chickens were from Murray McMurray Hatchery, and they were the jumbo Cornish cross. And they averaged to be around 5 pounds a piece. piece, which is about what we were looking for. Any bigger than that, you're not able to necessarily fit them in some of your cooking pans. So we do like to keep them around 5 to 6 pounds, give or take a few ounces or so. And next year, I have a feeling we're gonna be doing this up in the barn shop. So we'll keep you posted. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and learn something old. Bye guys.